Thank you. Andrew Michter, Wilson Center. A question to Secretary Rasmussen, and also I'd invite the ministers to comment if they would like to. For the past decade, we've actually seen NATO enlarge the area of security tasks, and there's been a propensity to widen the scope of what this organization is supposed to do. My sense is that in part as a result of that, we are losing the ability to communicate clearly to our publics, both in the United States and in Europe, what it is that the organization does. A question to you, sir, if you were to identify areas that actually NATO should try not to get into, should try not to do, to give us a sense of a sharper focus of what the mission would be, I'd welcome your comments on this, and also for the ministers, the regional perspective on this, simply because I have a sense, at least looking at the debates in the US, that the alliance is becoming almost amorphous in how it's being perceived by the public, doing such a variety of tasks that it seems to be losing its ability to focus clearly on core missions and communicate them to the public opinion.
Well,
Thank you.
Actually, I think it's a bit of a difficult question. If I understand you correctly, you would like me to map out where NATO should not engage. Let me put it this way. I do not see NATO as the world's policeman who engage wherever there might be a conflict or a problem. Which leads me to what NATO should be. NATO, as I have said repeatedly, should defend our member states' territory and populations. And this is the area in which NATO must engage. But my point is that to make this territorial defense credible, it might occasionally be necessary to engage in out-of-area operations and adapt to new security threats like the cybersecurity, missile threats, proliferation, etc., energy security, whatever. So not the world's policeman, but flexibility in the way we address territorial defense in the 21st century.
May I add one more sentence? Secretary General, you said that NATO needs a mix of conventional and nuclear capabilities. What do you feel about the debate in the US on a nuclear-free world, on denuclearization of the world?
I share the wonderful vision of nuclear zero, a world free of nuclear weapons. I think it would be wonderful if we could live peacefully together in a world without nuclear weapons. That's my point of departure. I share the vision. Having said that, I'm also a politician in the real world. And my point is, as long as we do have nuclear weapons on Earth, and as long as there are countries, states, and maybe also non-state actors that would like to acquire a nuclear capacity, then I think NATO should have a nuclear capacity as part of a credible deterrence.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sikorski?
I'd like to comment on the 2 points raised earlier about what NATO shouldn't do. And I would give you 2 examples. One, I think NATO is not geared to nation building. And that's why I support the McChrystal strategy and the President Obama's vision of us starting to draw down, as the Secretary General said, in Afghanistan in a couple of years' time. Because in 2 years' time, we will have been in Afghanistan for a decade. And I think we are doing the right thing now, telling the Afghan authorities, get your act together, because in 2 years' time, you will start being on your own. And therefore, take it seriously. You have a little bit of time to train up your military, to train up your police. But after that, we will start drawing down our military presence and we will continue to help you developmentally. Our interests in Afghanistan are limited, and what they are can be achieved with a much smaller footprint on the ground. We need to deny the territory of Afghanistan to the bad guys. But I think a much greater responsibility for the future of Afghanistan should be taken by the regional powers, by Pakistan, of course, but also by Russia, by India, by China. The business model in which we spend tens of billions of dollars and euros on security in Afghanistan, and some other countries are getting the mining concessions, is a good business model for them. And so I think it should be made clear. And the second issue, and you might find this surprising, I think the issue of energy security is an important issue for us. But I think NATO has limited tools with which to deal with this. I understand that NATO could be involved if there was at some future stage a physical threat to the pipelines. But that's not really the challenge. I believe that that energy security is above all actually a trade issue. It's an issue about monopoly suppliers and about prices. And here the EU has all the financial and regulatory instruments, and it is up to the EU to create an internal energy market and to get the best possible terms of trade in energy with our energy partners. And I think by treating it as an energy issue, we are giving the European Commission, which represents us in trade issues, the kind of pan-European perspective and therefore effectiveness that it has on other trade issues.
Very briefly, as long as the Washington Treaty is in force, NATO is still responsible for enhancing security of its member states. And because the concept of security during the last 20 years developed from, let's say, hard security issues to soft security issues, new risks and new tasks, NATO should be responsible for all the security issues that are included into this concept. We understand security right now in a different way than we understood 20 years ago. So if we want to have the organization enhancing our own security, we should put the effort to adjust NATO to current security challenges. It doesn't mean that NATO should take responsibility for all of them alone. It means also that it should share those burdens with other institutions and other international organizations. That's why we are stressing so much here in this room the necessity for better cooperation between NATO and the EU, because it is not necessary for the alliance to be active in all their spectrum, in this broad spectrum of challenges on the ground, for example in Kosovo or Afghanistan. The EU should have also an important contribution to stabilization of those areas. So NATO should adjust to security challenges and risks that we are facing right now, but not alone, in better cooperation with the other institutions.
Thank you very much.